Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. We do this show each and every single Monday, so if you like that, hopefully you stick around. Obviously, we take you guys through the fan Q&A. We take you guys through all the news you need to know about. And this week we do not have a clip of the week, unfortunately, because it is such short notice. The game just ended. There's really no video really of anything. So unfortunately, we do not have a clip of the week. I'll make sure we'll get one next week. But yeah, so let's get into the news. Let's start with Jesse Davis. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. Jesse Davis signs an extension. Dolphins offensive lineman Jesse Davis has earned a nice pay increase. ESPN's Adam Schefter tweets, the Miami Dolphins have signed the 27-year-old to a 3-year, $15 million extension. The deal includes $8 million guaranteed as an exclusive rights free agent. Davis will earn $600,000 in salary in 2019. The 2015 undrafted free agent out of Idaho spent the first year plus of his career with the Seahawks and Jets before finding a home in Miami. He made the 53-man roster following the 2017 preseason, and he's proceeded to appear in 32 games, 26 starts over the past 2 seasons. Yeah, this is a great signing. Despite getting absolutely shellacked today, Jesse Davis, I felt like played pretty well. I don't think he played terrible, especially since he switched positions this week. For him to play like that's pretty impressive. So this is a great signing. One of the most versatile players in the National Football League. To be able to do what Jesse has done over his tenure in Miami is pretty dang impressive. You think about all the positions he's played. I think his worst position is guard, which is his natural position. Me personally, I just don't think he's the greatest run blocker, but he's a really good pass protector, and he's really versatile. And this is just a really, really good signing by the Dolphins. He's a very valuable player because he can play all of those positions at a pretty good level. So, the only thing we haven't seen him do is play center. So, literally, he's played right tackle, left tackle, guards, both guard positions, I think. Maybe just the one, but he's played guard. Only one he hasn't done, he's played center. So I really do like that extension. He's a good player. Deserves it. I don't know whether we should get... I guess we should get into this first. Multiple Dolphins players request trades. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins season got off to a disastrous start as they were pummeled by the Ravens 59-10. The loss was ugly, but things apparently got even worse after the game. Multiple Dolphins players reached out to their agents following the loss and asked them to get them traded out of Miami. The source comes from Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk. It's the last thing this Dolphins team needed as the organization is going through a tumultuous time. We have heard that there will be a revolt in the locker room if the team traded away left tackle Laremy Tunsil, and it appears to be materializing now that Tunsil has been moved. Just about everybody has accused the Dolphins of intentionally tanking the 2019 season, although rookie head coach Brian Flores has been steadfast in his denials. Florio writes that the players believe that the coaching staff, despite claiming they intend to try to win, aren't serious about competing and winning. It's unclear which players are involved, although it'd presumably be the team's few remaining veterans, for what it's worth. The Dolphins told Florio that they haven't heard of any trade requests yet. Miami has been sending their older players packing at a rapid rate. Yeah, we know. So, this is a weird report, because this report pertains to this report. So we're going to do this one right after, back to back here. Report, Dolphins deny players are asking for trades after blowout loss. This comes from Sports Illustrated. The Dolphins have said no player has requested a trade. After the Pro Football Talks, Mike Florio reported multiple players have directed agents to work on trades following the team's 59-10 loss to the Ravens on Sunday. Reports the Miami Herald's Barry Jackson. According to Florio, multiple players believe the coaching staff isn't serious about winning this season, despite the coaching staff's insisting that they are. Florio wrote, the players believe that the coaching staff, despite... Yeah, we get it. I don't know why I just repeated myself. The Dolphins informed Pro Football Talk that they haven't heard from any agents or players regarding the issue. Okay, so I don't know what you guys want to believe. We also have another report pertaining to this. It's going to take a minute to come up here, but I really don't know what to believe. It seems to me the fact that the Dolphins reached out to Pro Football Talk just to say this isn't true, I believe that it's not. Just because of that. If it were me, that's my opinion on the whole situation. I'm trying to bring up a tweet that Barry Jack. Okay, here we go. So this comes from Barry Jackson, who's a longtime beat writer for the Dolphins, and he obviously has insiders in the organization. So this is a tweet from Barry Jackson regarding Pro Football Talk's report about some players wanting out. One player who did not ask for a trade today is Xavier Howard. Dolphins have told him they value him and he wants to stay. So at least X isn't one of those players that we know of. Which would make sense. I mean, I feel like X is pretty self-aware about the whole situation, especially his reaction to the all of the players that have left. You could kind of see that he gets it. Yeah. So what do I think about this? I don't know. I don't know whether to believe it or not. Whoever did request a trade, I don't care who it is, can just leave. If you're gonna request a trade after one game, then you can get off the team. If you're that there's 15 more to go, and you're gonna quit after one game. I don't care how bad you get beat. It's still 0. You're still 0-1. The Browns are 0-1. I understand, and don't get me wrong. When you get beat by an historic margin like we did, it's a big deal. I mean, it can be demoralizing. I'm not saying it's not, but it's still 0-1. You're still 0-1. Those points don't accumulate to anything. You lost, just like a ton of other teams did in the National Football League. So it is what it is. You move on. I mean, why would you even want to remember something like that? Move the heck on. If you're really, 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 really that hurt about it and you want to get traded away, then see you later. If you're going to quit after one game, I could care less. Now, we don't know who these players were. My personal list, I don't think he would do it. Obviously, Minkah Fitzpatrick. I could see Rashad wanting out, I guess. I couldn't see Kenyon giving up on the team since he's been here for so long, and he seems like a good man. So I wouldn't expect that from him, but who the heck knows, really? I couldn't tell you who did it or who didn't. But yeah, if you're willing to quit after one game, then I don't care who you are on this team. And Minkah Fitzpatrick's one of my favorite players on the team, if not my favorite. If he wants out, then I'm even like, okay, well then bye. If you have that kind of attitude towards it, then you can just leave. It's like I just said, I don't care what the margin of victory was. Okay, because this league is literally week to week. You move the heck on. That's what you have to do. A loss is a loss. Move on. It is what it is. Now, the fact that the players are questioning winning or not is absolutely ridiculous, and we'll get into it here in a second, but the game plan that we had for the Ravens was a very good one. It's the exact same one the Chargers did last year. It's just our players couldn't execute it. And we'll get into that here in a second, but the game plan was good on defense, I feel like. I think I would have tweaked a little bit. I would have definitely tweaked some things, and we'll get into that here in a second, but the coaching staff is not laying down. They're trying to win just as much as you guys are trying to win. That's my point. Despite what the heck everybody else thinks, what you hear on First Take and Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless say every dang week, the trash that comes out of their mouths, for God's sakes, it doesn't matter. You still have to play a game on Sunday. What does that matter what other people say about you and your team? They're not even a part of it. They're not in the building every day. What does any of that matter? And if you're willing to quit after one game, then sayonara, dude. Sayonara. I don't care who, like I said. If you're Minkah Fitzpatrick, cross the board. I don't care who you are. Bye. This has nothing to do with Brian Flores, and this has nothing to do, with the organization trying to lose, first of all. Now, you could say the whole tanking scenario with the players that are on the roster, but they're not trying to lose every single week. Schematically, they're trying to win just like everybody else. And first of all, in terms of veterans on this team, there's very few that are even half good. Like, there's none that are tradable other than Rashad Jones. That's it. Who else is going to want any of the other guys that are vets? Like, Minkus is a second-year player. Obviously, great player. X apparently didn't ask for a trade. That's about it, dude. You want Devon Gottschall, for God's sakes? Like, I don't know. I really don't get who... Kenyon Drake, I guess, is considered a veteran now. Like, it's absolutely insane. And by the way, what is, like... You know, Rodney Harrison said something really good, and Tony Dungy, they spoke upon suffering a loss like this in week one, especially if you're a first-time head coach. Rodney Harrison says he loves situations like this because... And I thought this was an interesting... You know what? We do have a clip of the week. I'm going to play that clip later in the show. Tony Dungy and Rodney Harrison had to say about the situation. But basically what he said, which I thought was interesting, is you love a situation like this because you really found out who's ride or die. Who's going to actually keep going with the team. Who's with the team. And the fact that there are players on this roster that after one game are willing to give up on everything, everybody that they've worked with all off season because of outside noise. That's insane. That's insane. That shows a lack of leadership in that locker room, if that's true. And I hope that's not true. I hope that our team has, you know, a harder mental state or harder mentality on things like that than just after one loss we're just gonna give up all hope. It's crazy, dude. It's absolutely craziness, in my opinion, and it shows weakness. And if that's what the heck you guys want to do, then go lose on some other team. That's simple, man. It hurts as a Dolphins fan to know that there are players on this team that give up like that, because I look forward to every single Sunday watching this team. It's my favorite day out of the week, is to sit there and watch this team, no matter how good they are. Bad or good. I've done it my entire life. That's just something I've done my entire life. And to sit here and say that there are players on this roster that are willing just to, throw it all away after one game is insane. I mean, we've all dealt with some sort of loss. And you just keep going. You just keep going, man. You don't complain and whine and quit. You just keep going. And the fact there are players like this, on this roster, then let them go. If that is true, then get them out. Get him out. I don't care who it is. I don't care how big of a name. Get the heck out of here. You can go quit on some other team. Alright, this next news story. I don't think we have... Oh, yeah. Well, the next news story, we're going to go through the Ravens and Dolphins game. And then we're going to get into the clip of the week, and then we're going to get into the fan Q&A. So, this is your box score, ladies and gentlemen. The Dolphins have suffered a 59-10 loss, to the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson finished 17 of 20, 324 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a perfect passer rating. Robert Griffin III finished 6 for 6 for 55 yards and 1 touchdown. Mark Ingram had 14 carries for 107 yards on the ground. Anthony Levine had the 1 punt return for 60 yards. Gus Edwards, 17 carries for 56 yards. We did a pretty good job on Gus. Justice Hill, 7 carries for 27 yards. Robert Griffin III, 4 carries for 9. Lamar Jackson, 3 carries for 6. Receiving-wise, Marquise Brown finished with 4 catches for 147 yards and 2 touchdowns. Mark Andrews finished with 8 catches for 108. And Hayden Hurst, 3 for 41. Those are their leading receivers of the game. The rest of the stats are really kind of insignificant. So, yeah, our defense really just, I don't know. They just didn't play very well. The one thing that was the most disappointing about the game was just the defense. I felt like, I've said it all, and I don't think I'm wrong yet. I have to see this team play more. Unlike the Dolphins, I'm willing to watch the rest of the 15 games to see how this team actually competes, for God's sakes. But defensively, I was very high on them, and I still felt like they can rebound from this. But the thing that disappointed me the most was the secondary. The secondary played god-awful. There were great players in the secondary other than really X, and probably had the best day out of anybody, to be honest with you, on the team. And that's saying something. Well, that's not saying something. because it's not saying something. But to lose like this, everyone really has to mess up, and nobody really played all that well. But yeah, the secondary was the most disappointing part of this game. Was just how bad they played. Everybody's very high on Lamar Jackson right now about how accurate he was. I mean, some of those deep passes a college quarterback can make, not only make that read, but make that throw. Those were wide open. There was nobody in the middle of the field. I don't want to say some of those are broken coverages, but the first one to Marquise Brown, I don't know if that was to go up 14-0 or not. I think it was. We did the classic New England thing, rush 3, drop back. If you watch Matt Patricia's Lions, if you watch Bill Belichick's Patriots, they all do that same kind of defense on third down. It's really just to either get the quarterback to throw it quick, and if you have good rushers, it's a good defense, and especially if you have a good secondary. So it's a very common thing in their defense, and it works. It's just, one of the things that we didn't do well on that play was we didn't get any pressure, obviously. He got way too much time, and the secondary broke down. And the weird thing about that play in particular, now I would have to watch it again. I've seen it a couple times because it's perplexed me ever since I saw it the first time. It doesn't make any sense to me. It had to have been a buster coverage because we only rushed 3. And there was no one in the middle of the field. I don't understand that. That's impossible. That was one of the weirdest plays I've seen in a long time. I really don't understand it. I don't understand what really happened on that play. Maybe somebody's got a better idea of what happened. I really don't know. I'm going to actually maybe take a look at that later on in the show. But, yeah, I don't know what that happened on that play. The secondary just didn't play well. The deep ball to Willie Snead, Mark Andrews. It's just bad coverage. It's a really bad coverage. And I forgot he had a touchdown. I just remembering the touchdown that he had on the slant. It's just bad coverage again. Eric Rowe had a terrible day. Speaking of terrible days, Eric Rowe had a god-awful day. For a veteran receiver to play, and if you watch that slant play, so it's a play-action fake. Eric Rowe is a veteran receiver. He has either he's got caught looking in the backfield, or he doesn't realize it's a passing play, or for some reason his entire body is stacked to outside leverage, and it's just an easy touchdown. Now I don't know what he's doing on that play, and there's an even worse play later on in the game and I'll talk about that here in a second. But yeah, so we rushed 3, and I'm looking at the play right now. We rushed 3. And there's no deep safety in the middle of the field. From when I don't have coach's film, so I can't see the entire field. I can just see from, our angle. So from what I see when the ball is thrown, at least, there is no one in the middle of the field. It is a 3-man rush. How in the God's name does that happen? That means there were 9 people in coverage. Or not 9. I don't know what the heck I'm saying. That means there were 8 people in coverage. I felt like the defensive line, the tackling was very poor. The defensive line had its moments, but it wasn't consistent. I thought Ledbetter had a decent game. He showed up a couple times for an undrafted rookie. In terms of other defensive things I noticed, Eric Rowe played terrible. We had an all-out jailbreak blitz on a 3rd and goal, I believe. And we had the exact look we wanted. He was going to get sacked. We got the quarterback to throw off of his back foot, and one of our corners, Eric Rowe, just loses focus on the play, and it ends up being a touchdown. He got caught looking in the backfield. This is one of the worst. I lost my mind. Granted, we had basically already lost the game at this point, but it made me very upset. It was just lack of effort, lack of awareness, lack of focus on this play. If he just sticks with his man and doesn't give terrible effort and terrible focus, that would have either been an interception or at the very least an interception, because he's throwing it off his back foot in the back of the end zone, and it's man-to-man coverage. the ball could have easily been intercepted. It wasn't a good throw. Stuff like that is what frustrated me the most about the game. Not to mention the obscene amount of penalties that we had on defense. Just lack of discipline, lack of focus. Now, granted, a lot of those penalties came when we were losing by a lot. So that could have come into play there. I really don't know. But, yeah, Eric Rowe played terrible. Absolutely terrible. The play that bothers me the most is that play because he is a player who's been in the league for a long time. And he should know better than that. And hopefully he does do better than that, because there's not many quarterbacks that can get away from pressure like that and even just get the throw off. Like, Lamar's the only, maybe Russell Wilson can do it, but it's to be fair to, I guess, Eric. I get Eric Rowe. I guess not many quarterbacks can make a play like that in his defense, but that is, you know who you're playing. You're not playing a slug back there. It's just, that was very unfortunate. In terms of other defensive things that I noticed, I liked the scheme that we attempted to run. It was one-on-one coverage across the board. Everybody was in the box. The number one priority was to stop the run. And I felt like the scheme is that, that's what you basically need to do. The thing that I felt like we should have done more is send a little bit more pressure, especially on third down. I don't care what the yardage situation is. We still played a lot of one-on-one coverage, and we didn't send pressure at times, and I felt like that was a mistake. I felt like if we pressured him more, especially with his inconsistent accuracy, his career high in completions before that game was 14. He broke that with 17. This is not a quarterback that can make a lot of throws within the pocket. If you hurried him up, you were disciplined in your blitzing lanes, and you sent pressure on third downs, I felt like we could have got off the field a lot of times. Hurried it up. He doesn't make the greatest reads of the world. He's not the most accurate quarterback in the world. Maybe you get an errant throw for an interception, or at the very least it's an incomplete throw. Even if there is someone open, if you get enough pressure, you're disciplined in your rush lanes, then, you're off the field. I felt like the defensive strategy was good. It just, not only was it not executed by the players, but I felt like, and granted, our secondary, even Brian Flores said it at halftime, he was disappointed in it because there is a lot of talent there. And they should be able to execute some of those coverages that we called, but they weren't. But I feel like to combat that, we should have sent more pressure. And we rarely did that throughout the game. And I felt like he is one of the quarterbacks that you can do that to because of his inaccurate tendencies. And I felt like we really just didn't take advantage of that. And other than that, all the defenses that were called, I'm 1,000%. If you look at the Marquise Brown touchdown, the play that I was talked about before, if Mika Fitzpatrick just does his job, or if there's a safety back there, then we're off the field. Like, it's not. You look at that play and you're like, oh, the Dolphins suck. It's literally just one easy thing to correct away from getting a stop there, and we just didn't do it. Everybody else was locked. It just takes one guy to mess up, and then it's a touchdown. It's just little things like that. I guarantee you that was even Minka's job, was to carry him all the way up the field like that. I guarantee you he expected help, because to only rush 3 there and to drop everybody else back and to let up a touchdown like that is so insane. It's crazy. So, it's stuff like that we just need to get better on. And, this is on the players on defense. Like, a lot of the stuff that we gave up was just poorly executed. Very, very poorly executed. All of the plays, the touchdown to Willie Snead, the big play to Mark Andrews, all the deep throws, like, that's on the players. They need to do a better job in coverage. Again, like I said, the one critique that I do have of the defensive play calling is just the lack of pressure that was called. That's it. I felt like going into this game, maybe you see that in him. He's not a very accurate passer. Tight coverage across the board, send pressure, maybe you get an errant throw. The one thing you do have to do if you do that is be disciplined in your rush lanes. So that way, if he does get out of the pocket, he doesn't have a 50-yard gain on the ground, or someone pops open free down the sideline or something like that. But yeah, defensively, I liked the scheme was, it's very similar to what the Chargers did last year. Just put everybody in the box and basically hope you guys can cover one-on-one. The thing the Chargers didn't have to deal with was the upgrades in speed that the Ravens have. They're a lot faster on offense now because of Marquise Brown. So it does get a little bit harder to do that. Although I felt like, I felt like we knew that, and that is why you saw a lot of those three-man rushes, is because we did know that Marquise Brown is a faster guy. We just didn't execute the calls. It just comes down to that. Now, if I go back and watch the game, maybe I come out with a different opinion. I highly doubt that. I really do, because that's all I was doing when I was watching the game, was just looking at, every. You got to look at every player. We weren't going to win the game. I was just looking at everybody and how they played, and it was very sad. Something about Greg Roman, not just the Ravens, but he has got to have the most success against us out of any offensive coordinator in NFL history. He has to, because every time we've played him, he's just it's not been good. Yeah, so defensively, wasn't great. I feel like, though, these are easy things to fix. In terms of the things that we messed up. Just mental mistakes, a lot of penalties, lack of focus. Like, there was a lot of that on Sunday, and, lack of execution, and that's something that we need to be better at. It's, obviously that's a sort of a detriment to the coaching staff. And I feel like we will improve and get better. In the defensive defense, the last thing I will say, and I'm not making excuses for it because it was god-awful. It was god-awful. And no Dolphins fan should ever have to see something like that ever again. But the one thing I will say is that offense is really, really hard to guard. The only way you can stop it is to play one-on-one across the board. You're basically thinking about it this way. You're basically playing zero coverage throughout the entire game just to stop the run. And you were able to do that last year because they didn't have anybody who could get open downfield. Now they do. So it's tough, man. It's a tough guard. No team should ever lose 59-10, especially in the National Football League. I am not making excuses for this team. I am just telling you that, we didn't lose to a bad team. Let's just put it that way. So let's talk about the offense. Obviously, Chad O'Shea's first game calling plays. We get to see Ryan Fitzpatrick in a Dolphins uniform for the first time in a game that actually matters. And what happened? Obviously the offensive line without Laremy Tunsil, what does that look like? One of the big things I said before going into this game is we can't turn the ball over, and what do? In the first quarter we throw an interception to Earl Thomas. It's like, and on a bad play, by the way. He did not have to make that throw. It wasn't even third down. It wasn't like we need, you don't need to throw in coverage like that. Especially when we were already down in the game, and you just can't do that against that team, man. That's how they've won a lot of games over the last 10 years, 20 years. It is defensively. When they start getting turnovers, it's almost impossible to beat the Ravens. So yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick did not play well. He had his moments. He made some plays with his feet at times, but his accuracy was very inconsistent. He missed some open throws. Very surprised how many throws he actually missed, to be honest with you. That did surprise me. His decision-making was still very poor. He was not good on Sunday. The offensive line was very up and down. It had its moments. Shaq Calhoun did not play in this game, unfortunately. I don't know why. I guess it was due to injury. I hope it wasn't a coaching decision, because obviously he got all the first-team reps throughout the preseason, so... But despite losing your left tackle and one of your starting guards, I felt like the offensive line at times actually surprised me. Julian Davenport, maybe it's something else, I can't remember. He didn't look all that great. He had his moments, and then he didn't have his moments, and when he didn't have his moments, it was really, really bad. Like, it was really, really bad. Like, Pernell McPhee looked like Lawrence Taylor out there. So, the offensive line definitely can improve, but there's also, I felt like there's room to grow there, and hopefully they continue to get better. I'm excited to see it. When Shaq comes back, Davenport hopefully, which they call him Coach Goo. I can't remember his entire name. It's a very hard name to say. Hopefully he can continue to, help them out, and he's one of the best offensive line coaches in the league. So I don't know. They did not play well on Sunday though. They played very bad. I do, surprisingly, I don't know how many sacks they allowed. I'd have to look that up. I forgot to read the offensive box score. Let me read that really quick. But yeah, especially a team, some of those pressures were just bad blitz pickups as well. The Ravens send a lot of pressure at you. And it's really, they don't really rely on their ends because their pass rushers aren't that good. I mean, Matthew Judon's probably their best pass rusher. It's not like the most stellar group you've ever seen. They rely on a lot of pressure, and a lot of the times we just couldn't pick up the blitz. And that's been a problem in Miami a long time. And that needs to improve as well. Here's your box score offensively. Ryan Fitzpatrick finished 14 of 29 for 185 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Josh Rosen came in for a series. He finished 1 for 3 for 5 yards and an interception. In terms of on the ground, the Dolphins, Kenyon Drake finished with 4 carries for 12 yards. Ryan Fitzpatrick had 1 carry for 8 yards. Albert Wilson 1 carry for 1 yard. Mark Walton 1 carry for 1 yard. And Kalen Balash 5 carries for 1 yard. So we really didn't even run the ball that game. We were down so quick. We were down 14-0 in the first 2 possessions of the game. We just were never able to even try to establish a running game. Receiving, DP had a pretty decent day. He had 3 catches for 75 yards. Mike Gesicki had 2 for 31. It should have been a lot more. Ryan Fitzpatrick missed him on a deep ball. Preston Williams had 3 catches for 24. Should have been a little bit more, and a touchdown. He should have had 2 touchdowns on the day. Dropped one in the end zone. Alan Hearns had 1 catch for 22 yards. Ryan Fitzpatrick missed him on a deep throw. Kenyon Drake had 2 catches for 15. Albert Wilson 2 catches for 13. And Kalen Balash 1 catch for 13. So yeah, all around just a terrible day on offense as well. Jakeem Grant was non-existent after signing that extension. Obviously also dropped a punt. There were times in this game where I really felt like we forgot how to play football. Especially with all the penalties. It was really just the penalties that were so frustrating. And a lot of it was just a lack of focus, because when you're down that much, I mean, there was a lot of throwing shaking of the head, and there's a lot of throwing, hands in the air. There's a lot of frustration out there, and I felt like hopefully that's where all those penalties came from, because if that can continue, then this team has 0 chance of doing anything. It's just going to be just god-awful. You cannot have that many penalties with this team especially. So, yeah, offensively it was just an absolute mess. Ryan Fitzpatrick needs to play better. The offensive line needs to play better. The receivers played good when they had their opportunities. Like I said, Fitzpatrick missed a lot of throws that he needs to make in these games. I feel like he got way too giddy at times too. Now, granted, the offensive line wasn't doing it any favors, but when he had time, I feel like he probably could have taken a little bit more time to throw the ball instead of, running around and throwing it on the stuff like that. I just felt like no one did their job in offense for the most part. Preston Williams looked good. DP looked good. I thought Mike looked good. He was missed on a lot of throws. There was even times where I think a ball got tipped at one point. He would have had at least a 12-yard gain. There was just a lot of just poor execution on offense. Again, we really, in the backbone of this team was going to be the running game. That's why I drafted Chandler Cox. That's something that Brian Flores has talked about a lot. We weren't even able to do that in this game. Like I just said, Kalen Balash finished with 5 carries, for God's sakes, and Kenyon finished with 4. That's not enough, dude. Especially with this team and the philosophy that it has. We were not ever able to be the team that we wanted to be because of how the game went. And it's unfortunate, dude. I mean, we absolutely got smacked in the face. And I hate to sit here and harp on it because I'm telling you something you guys already know, and we're gonna move on now. But it was just embarrassing. It was absolutely embarrassing, and I do think there were players that played well, like Preston Williams, Xavier Howard, Devontae Parker. I thought Mike got open on a consistent basis. He just was not throwing the ball at times, or he just was missed, or the ball was tipped in the air. So if you give this offensive line time, they will be able to execute. Hopefully, the secondary can bounce back from this game. That was the most disappointing part about this game, is how bad the secondary played. Because that was the one thing that I thought that was going to be above average. And it was very disappointing. Very, very disappointing. Alright, let's get into the clip of the week, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, this is your clip of the week, ladies and gentlemen. This comes from Pro Football Night in America on NBC, and they're talking about how do players and coaches react to a loss, especially a rookie head coach. And Tony Dungy obviously has experience in that, so does Rodney as a player. And this is what they said. How do you deal with a loss like that pertaining to the Dolphins?
For Freddie Kitchens as a head coach, he wasn't even a coordinator this time last year. He was a position coach. So now you've been thrust in that role. Now you've got to figure out how to pick up the pieces very fast. After a 30-point loss like Brian Flores in Miami, they get crushed by 49 points. And now you've got to go back in front of the team for the first time after a loss and say, guys, we're okay. But you really inside can't feel like, I know we're okay.
I've been there. My first game, we lost to the Green Bay Packers 35-3. We couldn't make a first down. We couldn't stop them. They pulled off the dogs. Otherwise, it'd have been 60-3. And my message was, you know what? We've got to go back to square one. Fundamental football. That's what's going to win.
And as a leader in that locker room too, Coach, I love sometimes situations like this because you get a chance to really sit back and see who's with you, who's going to continue to come in early, or who's just a front runner.
Exactly.
And Florio, you hit it because they have the Jets on Monday night next week.
So I thought that was interesting insight on the whole situation. Yeah, so what's next? Oh, yeah, we had the thank you. I'm sure we got a lot of questions in this week. I forgot to say on Chad's play calling, I mean, again, we really weren't able to run our game plan because we couldn't. I mean, we were down at 14-0. It was our offense became very one-dimensional. Not only because of the defensive line of the Ravens, but offensively, we just weren't able to not only execute, but again, we really couldn't get into our game plan because of the score. And that's unfortunate. We just got punched in the mouth. And I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses for this team because I'm not. Like, it was really bad, dude. It was really, 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 really bad. This next question comes from, let's get into the fan Q&A. This first question comes from SM. He asks, I will be at the Patriots game to watch Antonio Brown's return. Should I try and sell these tickets and stay home, or does Coach Flores have some tricks and knowledge that will keep at least the game close? I think this game, defensively, it's going to be, it's going to blow everybody's mind when I say this, but it's definitely going to be more of a traditional offense. Despite all of the talent on the field, it's not as creative as, or I shouldn't say creative, it's not as hard to guard as a Ravens offense, where you have to worry about the running game, you have to worry about Lamar Jackson, and you have to worry about the passing game. If you send pressure, he can't get out of it. If you have good coverage on the back end, you send pressure, he can't get out of it. But you do have to cover. It is what it is. You have to be able to cover Josh Gordon. I don't think Antonio Brown's going to have a big part of the game plan. He would be with the team for a week at that point. I really doubt. He might not even play. But you still have to guard Edelman. You still have to guard Josh Gordon. You still have to guard Philip Dorsett. You still have to, get past that good offensive line. And obviously Tom Brady, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. So there's a lot that you have to prepare for. But definitely not going to get beat as bad as we did against the Ravens. It definitely will be more of a competitive game, however you want to frame that. But it's definitely a lot more, just put it this way, it's a lot easier to identify what you have to stop as opposed to the Ravens, where you basically have to cover every inch of the field, and every down is a hold your breath moment because they have so many tools to work with, and especially with their scheme, it's very, very, very difficult to defend. This next question comes from JFG. He says, who do you think played the best against the Ravens besides Xavier Howard? Besides Xavier Howard, I would have to say, if I had to rank it, I would say Preston Williams, Devontae Parker, and maybe Ledbetter. I would say would be, those are my top 3. This next question comes from Pete Martinez. He says, Skaggs, what's your most wanted matchup of next week's game against the Patriots? Or most worried matchup of next week against the Patriots? I would say the running game, because we didn't do a very good job of stopping against the Ravens, and that's been a problem for many years. If the Patriots run the ball on us, it's going to be a long day. So yeah, I would say the running game is probably the thing that I would be the most worried about, and the thing that and open field tackling would be the top 2 things that would worry me the most against the Patriots. This next question comes from Mediocrity in Miami. It says, thoughts on players reportedly telling their agents about requesting a trade. Xavier was not one of them, by the way. I said it earlier in the show. I feel like I don't care who you are. If that's how you feel, then you don't need to be on the team anymore. That's just how it is. If you're really willing to give up on an organization after one game, then you don't belong here. This next question comes from SM. And again, I'm not ignoring the fact that we lost that bad. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that a loss is a loss, everything is created equal. It's not. I mean, you lose like that. It's interesting in football, and any competitive thing, anything, when you talk about losing, like, when you lose a gut wrencher, maybe a game that you should have won, or you came back on, or stuff like that. Like, all of those feel terrible. Like, every one of those feel terrible. A loss is a loss. You just have to move on from it. But it is what it is. You come out with basically the same feeling every time you lose. No one likes to lose, dude. Get over it. Move on to the next one. Get better from it. You can't quit. If you quit, then you need to retire or not be on this team anymore. That's how I feel about it. This next question comes from SM. He said he asks, will it be too hot in Miami next Sunday to wear a paper bag? Probably not. You could probably get away with one of the paper bag. This question comes from J. Cray. He says, we're screwed, aren't we? We're going to hold Flores accountable for this, or do you think it's growing pains and it will get better? The one thing that I am worried about is Stephen Ross getting super impatient. Because if this continues, like this type of play from this particular team, which I don't think it will, I think the secondary is too good to play like that every single week, and if it does, then that's not good, because that means nothing is getting fixed. Either that or the personnel is just that bad. But here's what I'll say. The thing that I'm worried about is impatience. Okay, if this is what this team is, you have to let Brian Flores and Chris Greer fix it. You have to. Because they didn't start this problem. You did, Stephen Ross, and they're trying to fix the problem. So, I hope he has the patience to see it through. And if he doesn't, first of all, it's not going to take 3 years. If it takes, and I've said this a million times, it should never ever take, especially in the NFL, with how the rules are set up, more than if you can make your team better and competitive again in one off season. It's been done a million times before. It should not take that long. I fully expect the Dolphins to be a competitive team after next offseason, and if they're not, to me that's a bad sign. Because I've seen too many organizations have a bad year and then rebound the next year. I've seen it too many times. It's happened a million times. And, there's a blueprint out there they just need to figure out, especially with all the draft capital they have in this upcoming draft and all the cap space they have. They got to do something with it. Make the team more competitive. So I don't think the tanking situation or how long it's going to take, if anything, it just will be this season. And I 1,000% believe that. That's not just me saying that because I'm a fan. I really do believe this team can be competitive after this next offseason. For sure. With all of the ammunition that this team has, if they can't put together something that can win games on Sunday, then there's something wrong with this organization. This next question comes from Corporate Gamer. He asks, should we trade Kenyon Drake if he demands us to trade him? Yes. If he quit, he quit. You're gone. This next question comes from Mario. It says, what do you think of the players that want out of the team, and who do you think are requesting the trades? I'll answer the who do I think who are requesting the trades. I would say it's all the vets. I would say it's Rashad Jones. I would say it's, I hope it's not Albert Wilson. I don't think it is Albert Wilson, but I would say all of the veteran players. It would have to be one of them. It's not one of the younger guys. I don't think it's like Minka or, definitely not like Jesse Davis, like younger younger players. This next question comes from SM. It's not the younger players, is what I meant to say. It's got to be one of the vets. I would say culprit number one would definitely be Rashad Jones. It would not be surprised me if he was one. By the way, this is the same man that quit during a game because he wasn't getting as much playing time. So, yeah, I would not be surprised if he was one of them. This question comes from SM. He says, Skaggs, talk about Cameron Wake's 100th sack, a safety on Baker Mayfield, and about the Bills coming back by 16 to beat Adam Gase. Yeah, I did see Cameron Wake's safety. It was, a very interesting play. Baker held onto the ball way too long. It was a great rush by Wake, obviously showing he never quits on a play, always shows great effort, and it paid off on that play. In terms of the Bills coming back on the Jets, that was an ugly game. Both teams did not play very well. Josh Allen did not have a good game. Neither did Sam Darnold. It was a very ugly game. I thought both teams didn't look great. I was actually surprised how bad the defense for the Jets looked. I was very surprised. This next question comes from Edward Manning. He asks, Stag, should we believe in the coaches, or did they even have a game playing today? I would like to know. Thank you. Yeah, I don't think it was the coach's fault. I think it was the players' lack of execution. And, I felt like the personnel is there, especially the secondary, so I'm not going to say it's personnel, but it definitely was a lack of execution. And maybe it was just a bad day, because that happens too, but it was really bad. It was really bad. But I don't think it was the coach's fault at all. I think the one critique I have is just the lack of pressure that was sent on particular downs. I felt like that should have been a bigger part of the game plan, but everything else that they did is the only thing you can do to stop that team. You can't go into too deep a look. You either have to go single high safety the entire game or literally put both safeties in the box to stop that offense. And it's hard to do that now because they can throw it over your head. So it's a very tough offense to go against. This next question comes from Mark. He asks, would you prefer Fitz or Rosen to start next week and why? I really thought Josh should have started, already. The thing that, if Fitzpatrick wasn't so consistently inaccurate and made bad decisions, I would feel way more comfortable with him starting because he does have great playmaking ability. But he's way too inconsistent, dude. You cannot miss the passes he missed. You cannot make those decisions. Why are you throwing the ball into double cut to Earl Thomas? It's not third in the game. Like, you do not have to make that throw. It just, you scratch your head sometimes. It's like, what are you doing? And why can't you hit a wide open receiver down the sideline, for God's sakes? It's like stuff like that you cannot do, especially with this team. If you have an opportunity like that, you have to hit it. And for him to be that inconsistent with all of those things is very concerning. I love his playmaking ability, but if he can't make those plays, then he doesn't need to be the starter. And if he's turning the ball over like that with boneheaded picks like that, then he should not be the starter anymore. This next question comes from Corporate Gamer. He says, what did you think of the Patriots getting Antonio Brown? I don't know. I felt like, what the heck? I mean, why? I don't know how that happens. The man was on the Steelers to start the offseason, was traded to the Bills, cried his way out of that, then was traded to the Raiders, then somehow got out of that, and then went to the Patriots. How it happened, I don't know. If Antonio Brown tears that locker room apart, he is the craziest player in NFL history. He's crazier than Charles Haley. He's crazier than Terrell Owens. He's crazier than Chad Ochocinco. If he goes into New England and tears, if he makes a huge fuss or whatever, and they have to let him go, then I've seen it all, ladies and gentlemen. I've seen it all. This next question comes from Jay. He says, hey Skaggs, how are you? Well, I'm just fine. I'm on suicide watch. So, how do we come back from this? It's not every day thing that we see a team lose 59,000 to 10. Rumors has it that there are players asking for trades already. Sincerely, one of your longest fans, Jay. I really appreciate that. That's very, 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 very kind of you. I don't even really know. The question is, how do we come back from this? you can't quit. If you quit, then you're never going to get better. It's never going to get better if you quit. You can't quit. If you quit, you're just going to stay the same. It's like, do you like feeling this? Do you like sitting in this situation? Do you like being in this situation? No. Move the heck on and get better from it. The fact that there are players, especially if they're veteran players, which is what was reported, then get out of here. If you like, the fact that they just want to leave is insane to me. It's like, I just want to go hitch my wagon to some other bus that I think is going to win more games. It's like, okay, buddy, you want the easy road out? Then go down the yellow brick road down there. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. And how do we get better from it? You just have to move on and get better. Literally. You have to. And it should not be that hard. Like, I know it sucks, and no one wants to be that bad. Nobody wants to get humiliated that bad. You can feel down on yourself. Or, there's a game next week in 7 days, okay? Do better the next time. You have a chance to right the ship. There are 15 more of these. The Colts went 1-5 and made the playoffs. The Dolphins went 0-4 and made the playoffs. The Dolphins in 2008 went to a home playoff game after getting blown off the street by the Arizona Cardinals. Okay? It's not impossible. That's exactly what I've said to the team if I was Coach Flo. I would have been like, this has been done a million times. So many teams have been gotten beaten bad and came back from it. If you have the weak mentality that you have, then you're never going to come back from it. And you don't need to be on this team. But it's been done a million times. I'm not saying this team's going to do it. But to sit here and give up after this, just one game, is insane. There's 15 more. Good Lord. If you get over it, you're going to play another game quicker than you can think, for God's sakes. If you don't want to play, then don't play. Go find someone who does. It's just ridiculous. This next question comes from JFG. He asks, who do you think played the worst against the Ravens? Jesus. Man, and I hate to say it, if I had to make a top 3, Minkah Fitzpatrick's probably in there. Even though I think some of those were busted coverages, but he did not have it's probably his worst game I've ever seen him play. In terms of other guys, I mean, the entire offensive line did not play well. Other than Jesse Davis, I thought he played okay. I thought, I don't know. There are so many bad performances. I would say Eric Rowe. I'm going to go with Eric Rowe. That play, not only did he play bad for the entire game, but the play, and I don't know why we didn't have X on Marquise Brown. It's their best receiver. But the play that we... what was I about to say? Oh, yeah, the play, the touchdown on the jailbreak blitz was just unacceptable. The next question comes from SM. He asks, I will be at the Patriots game to watch Antonio Brown's return. Should I try? Oh, we already answered this question. This next question comes from a corporate gamer. He says, do you think our rebuild is similar to how the 76ers did their rebuild? No, I don't think it is. Now I would have to go. I mean, it's been so long since they've done that. First of all, it took them forever. Second of all, they did it poorly, in my opinion. It's not a good example, in my opinion. I mean, they got Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, but it took them way too long to not win a championship. Let's put it that way, especially in the NBA. This next question comes from JFG. He says, do you think John Ledbetter and waiver wire claim Avery Moss from the Giants will do well this season? They both played well, in my opinion, against the Ravens. Yeah, I thought Avery Moss played a little worse than Ledbetter, but I like the way Ledbetter played. He played well. This next question comes from Carlos. This is, by how much are we going to lose in the Patriots game? Not as much as we did against the Ravens, I can promise you that. This next question comes from Jack Pack. He says, I have to believe Stephen Ross has some kind of get-out thing going on because it looked like Matt Burke's brain was swapped into the coach's body. It really wasn't their fault. The game plan was solid. It just was not executed well. This next question comes from Wayne Tillman. He says, do you think the rebuild will take a little longer than we all thought after today's performance? No, it shouldn't. This next question comes from Tech Me Out. He says, "Hi Skaggs. While I completely expected to lose this game, I had hoped that the team at least I had hoped that the team at the very least looked prepared, played with pride, and would be somewhat competitive. This was completely unacceptable from an NFL team. Very disappointing. I completely agree with you, especially how they're handling the loss. It's very, very, very disheartening." This next question comes from Jerry Dickerson. He says, "How excited are you to draft Tua?" I hate that. I hate when people say stuff like that. I hate that. That means we have to lose a lot. This next question comes from Corporate Gamer. He says, "Should we start Rosen next week?" Yeah, I would have already started Rosen. This next question comes from JFG. He says, "Should we start Rosen against the Pats?" Yes. I mean, if it was up to me, he would have already started. This next question comes from JFG. He says, "Do you think Tua is overrated?" I think so. I would rather draft Justin Herbert, Jacob Eason, or Shea Patterson. JFG, no offense to you, but what is with you and Shea Patterson? What do you like so much about Shea Patterson? I hate Shea Patterson. Or I don't hate him. I don't think he's... I shouldn't say that. I just don't like his game. But yeah, I think Tua's the best out of all those guys. If in my opinion. I like Justin Herbert too. I think he's a good quarterback as well. But I like... If out of all those guys, I think Tua's the best. I think that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's it for the fan question. Dude, we went through 30 questions that quick. Thank you guys for, asking 31 questions on such short notice. Because, we uploaded that, or I have a broadcast team over here. When I uploaded that video, it was like right after the game ended, so it's pretty good. I really appreciate that. I mean, it was good to have this conversation with you guys, and hopefully this team can continue to play better, get better, and not be a bunch of pansies and give up after one game. You hate to even hear that there are players that are willing to give up that quick. But that's gonna be it, guys. I'm Skaggs83. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Let me know what we could do better. Or, like I said we again. It's just me. What I could do better to make the show better. And I cannot wait to see you guys in the next one.